here from Jessicat's Medi-Spa, doing a little bit of Jessicat's Pilates. So, yesterday we did lateral breathing. So we learnt how to draw our breath up into the upper rib cage, expanding that out to the sides of the room without raising our shoulders. Trying to draw that breath into the sides of the rib cage, upper back, expanding muscles in the upper back that you've never really felt before, and then using our abdominals up through pelvic floor, the muscles that stop ourselves from urinating, to expel that breath. We drop the pelvic floor and we breathe into the sides of the rib cage. And on the breath out, we use those lower abdominals to expel, and the rest of our abdominals, so our transverse abdominals and our rectus abdominis, to push that breath out. So it's a way of breathing while still being able to maintain some abdominal control, which is important because our lower abdominals, transverse abdominals, wrap around our lower back. So today we're going to expand on that by talking about a neutral pelvis and a neutral spine. So, we're going to take feet hip distance apart, ankles underneath knees, underneath hips. We're going to lay down on the mat. And we're going to take the heels of our hands and place them on the hip bones and fingertips on the pubic bone. We're going to imagine if we had a glass of water, would it tip on us or away from us? Or would it sit lovely and straight? Heels of the hands on hips, fingertips on your pubic bone. And we've made a little triangle. So, glass of water sitting in that triangle. If I relaxed into my natural position, my lower back falls to the floor, always has. It's just the shape of my spine. So, I have to arch my back in order to, heels on the hands, fingertips on the pubic bone, thumbs together, in order to make the perfect neutral pelvis. Now that's not okay. I did that throughout my Pilates training when I was doing my diploma of Pilates instruction. I would do class after class and you get tired. So you just can arch your back just that little bit and you can achieve a picture perfect instructor walking around the room looking at your pelvis, a picture perfect neutral pelvis. What is more important than a neutral pelvis is a neutral spine. The way we are supposed to achieve a neutral pelvis, if you're like me and your back falls to the floor and your pubic bone raises, or if you're the opposite, if your pubic bone draws the other way and you've just got quite an increased arch, yeah? So your glass of water would fall towards your pubic bone. So either way, if your pubic bone is a little bit higher than your hip bones and your glass of water would fall towards you, or if your glass of water would fall the other way, you need to adjust your pelvis to make it neutral, but never at the expense of a neutral spine. So you can achieve a neutral pelvis without having a neutral spine. So it's very important that I imagine, so I'm going to let my spine just relax how it normally would. My pubic bone's higher than the hip bones. So I imagine my glass of water and it would tip towards me. So I imagine a string being pulled from my tailbone. I draw up and inside through my pelvic floor, which works to turn on my transverse abdominals. And now I've been able to achieve a more, not picture perfect, but a more neutral pelvis with a neutral spine. I'm not arching through my neutral spine. So let's do that again. My pubic bone's a little bit higher than my hip bones naturally, and my lower back falls into the floor. So in order to achieve my pubic bone and hip bones being aligned, I have to imagine a string being attached to my tailbone and it being pulled to the other side of the room. I draw up and inside through my pelvic floor and use my abdominals to adjust my pelvis. send that string away, and I go into a neutral spine, which means I imagine I've got the cutest, fluffiest kitten underneath the small of my back, and I don't want to push into it. I can just get a hand under here, yeah? Because you have a curve in your lower back. You have a natural curve in your lower back. You want to maintain that. You don't want to lose it. That's the most important thing, your neutral spine. So pubic bone, hip bones, yeah, my glass of water would still fall towards me a little bit, but I have more of a neutral pelvis and my neutral spine has been achieved. And it's a lot of work for me because I've got to imagine coming up through my pelvic floor and using my abdominals, my lower abdominals, to send my tailbone to the other side of the room. There's a string attached to my tailbone, it's being pulled to the other side of the room, and I've achieved a neutral pelvis and a neutral spine. So my neutral pelvis is not picture perfect. You can learn more about achieving neutral pelvis and neutral spine by going on websites like Pilates Anytime and doing some of their workshops. Okay, there's a lot of resources online, guys. It's very important that you work in the correct pelvic alignment for where you're up to in your fitness. So right now, my abdominals, a little bit weak, I'm out of shape. So I'm going to be very mindful of my lower back, and I want you to be too. Okay, Pilates is a fantastic practice, but we don't want you to get injured whilst you're strengthening. So, you now know what a neutral spine is. It's when the natural curve of the spine is present, that would be present when you're standing, is present when you're laying down. And you've not gone into, your lower back is flat against the floor, and you're not arching either. You're using your lower abdominals and your pelvic floor, which helps you turn on your lower abdominals to achieve that. And I personally have to think about a string being pulling my tailbone to the other side of the room. So that's a neutral pelvis. My arms are next to me. I'm pushing into the backs of my arms. My neck is lengthened, and now I'm in the right alignment. Ankles underneath knees, underneath hips, underneath relaxed shoulders. Lovely. So let's talk about pelvic floor and let's go into some imprinting. Yay! Imprinting. Yes! Okay, very important. So it's the first exercise that I want you to learn besides lateral breathing. You now know how to breathe the Pilates way. You breathe up into the sides of your rib cage. Now I want you to be able to turn on your pelvic floor. So, I want you to think those muscles that stop you from urinating. If you were to stop mid-urination, let's turn those on. Just pulling my wig down, checking my ears, all good. So, I'm going to breathe into my upper rib cage. On the breath out, I'm going to come up through my pelvic floor 100%. I'm going to draw in those abdominals just above my pubic bone as strongly as I can, 100% through those muscles that would stop me from urinating. Going to do it 100%, and that's going to relax my lower back towards the floor slightly. Breath in, I relax. Breath in to prepare, drawing that breath up into my rib cage. On the breath out, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals. How do I turn the lower abdominals on? I use those muscles that would stop me from urinating. I draw them on as much as I can. I draw in that area just above my pubic bone, and breath in. My pelvis goes back to correct alignment. You may not see any movement, guys, or you may see somebody moving quite a bit. There's nothing wrong with virtual Pilates. Breath in to prepare. Up into my upper rib cage with my breath. On the breath out, up through my pelvic floor, drawing 100% up and inside, using the muscles that would stop me from urinating and drawing in from just above my pubic bone. That relaxes my lower back towards the floor. That's why it's called imprinting. And breath in, I relax back to neutral spine and as close to a picture perfect neutral pelvis as possible. Breath in to prepare. Breath out, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, 100% through pelvic floor, and my lower back relaxes towards the floor. Breath in, everything relaxes back. I imagine somebody pulling my tailbone away. Good. Breath in to prepare. Breath out, up through pelvic floor, up through, 100% through, lower abdominals, initiated by using those muscles that would stop you mid-urination, drawing on. Give it a cough, guys, cough. Feel those muscles just above your pubic bone. That's where you want to feel this. 100%. Breath in and relax. Breath out. Up through pelvic floor, 100%. You find something very, very funny. You're at a dinner party, you're surrounded by your closest friends, and you've got a full bladder. Those are the muscles I want you to use to relax your lower back towards the mat. That's not the point, it's something that happens. And relax. Now, things to watch out for. When I say to you, your lower back's going to draw towards the floor, you may think, well, Jess wants me to draw my lower back towards the floor. No problem, done it. What'd you do that with? Did you do it with your lower back? Because that's not what we want to do. We don't want to draw our lower back down to the floor with our lower back muscles. We want our imprinting exercise to happen because we've drawn up through pelvic floor and lower abdominals so much that it relaxes our lower back towards the floor, and then we come back to a neutral pelvis, neutral spine. So it's about trying to get your lower back to draw towards the floor with your abdominal connection only. You're not allowed to use the booty, and you are not allowed to use your lower back. That's a deal breaker. Let's do 6 without me gas bagging. Breath out, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, using those muscles up above your pubic bone. Oh, feels like a nice release through my lower back. Breath in, relax your pelvic floor. Breath out, up through the muscles that would stop you mid-urination. Use those. You can touch above the pubic bone and cough. Those are the muscles we want to use to draw your lower back towards the floor. I said I wasn't going to talk, so I'll be quiet. Breath out, up through lower abdominals and pelvic floor, 100%. Feel that release in the spine. Release that spine towards the floor by using 100% of lower abdominals and pelvic floor. Relax the shoulders. Breath in. Back to a neutral pelvis, neutral spine alignment. Breath out. Up through lower abdominals. 100% through lower abdominals, pelvic floor. Last one, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals. You feel your spine relaxing towards the floor. Your cup of water would be pouring towards you, and back to neutral alignment. So you know what a neutral pelvis is. Hip bones, pubic bone, all in alignment, and a cup of water placed in the middle would not tip away from you or towards you. But you also know it's more important that the natural curve of your lower back is present when you're standing, that would be present when you're standing, is present when you're laying down, and that you have a neutral spine. Whilst you are weak in your abdominals, there's nothing wrong with working in an imprint. So that exercise was called imprinting because your lower back does draw towards the floor, even if it just feels like it is and you don't see anything happening. Nothing wrong with virtual Pilates. Even if it just feels like it's drawing towards the floor, imprinting is when you use your abdominals 100% to draw your lower spine towards the floor without using your booty, without using your lower back. That's imprinting. You can work in an imprint when you're first learning Pilates. Allow your lower back to draw towards the floor. Your pubic bone would be higher. You're not in a neutral spine. You're not in a neutral pelvic position. but it might be safe for you to work in this position whilst you're first learning Pilates. But you want to be able to have your hip bones and your pubic bone in as close an alignment as possible and maintain what should be a natural curve in your lower back. We work to try and create a better alignment in the body. So just because my lower back wants to fall towards the floor, I know that's because I'm not strong in my abdominals and holding correct alignment. So I work for a better position. Yeah? So you'll be able to see postural charts on the internet. I will put some up in this video, at the end of this video, but we are wanting to have a slight curve in our lower back, and we want hip bones and pubic bones nice and aligned. That's a neutral pelvis and a neutral spine. That's the goal. If you need to work in an imprint, which is when your lower back comes to the floor, that's fine to begin with, but you do want to be working towards having a very slight curve in your lower back and hip bones and pubic bone nice and even in the future. And achieving that by doing what I do, imagine a string attached to your tailbone being pulled away, pulled away, pulled away, and your lower abdominals helping you to maintain this alignment. It's hard work just to lay in correct alignment. It's hard work to stand in correct alignment. It's hard work to sit in correct alignment. That's Pilates. That's what makes you stronger. So now we're going to go into a pelvic curl. So now we're going to lift that booty. The booty is going to get lifted. It's a breath in to prepare. I'm going to show you. Breath out, up through, lower abdominals, pelvic floor. So 100% through those muscles that would stop us from urinating. Your lower back comes towards the floor. I squeeze up through crease of the bottom. I draw that pubic bone up towards the ceiling. I push into the backs of my arms. I squeeze and draw my weight over my toes. Breath in, breath out. I articulate my spine from top, middle, and bottom, and down. I breathe in to prepare. Breath out, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals. So we start to go into an imprint. We start to relax that lower back towards the mat, all from our abs. Abs are turned on. Let's get the booty involved. Squeeze up through crease of the bottom and press into big toe, little toe, heel. On the breath in, I send that pubic bone up towards the ceiling. I press into my arms. I breathe out, articulating that spine down to the mat, top to bottom like a string of pearls, and back down I go. I check my alignment. I draw those fingertips away. I draw those arms into the mat. I'm going to sneak those feet away to make this a little bit harder for me. Breath in to prepare, up into the rib cage. Breath out, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals. Ah, beautiful. Got my tummy on, up through crease of the bottom. Crease of the bottom. Oh yeah, this is harder now. Crease of the bottom. Good. Draw that pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Make sure I'm even through my hips. Take my weight over my toes. That's hard. Breath out, articulate down from top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. Don't want to let go of that booty until the last moment. I'm going to bring my feet in just a little bit because that was a little bit hard. Send my fingertips long. Breath in to prepare. Neck is relaxed. Breath out, up through pelvic floor. Lower abdominals come on first. Good, good. Now, as my spine is drawing towards the floor, I pick it up through crease of the bottom. I draw my pubic bone up towards the ceiling. I take my weight over my toes. I push into the backs of my arms. See if I can take my pubic bone up towards the ceiling and over my toes a little bit more on the breath in. Breath out, I relax head, neck, and shoulders. Press into my arms. Return my spine back down to the mat like a string of pearls from top to bottom. Adjust my position. Has it changed? Relax head, neck, and shoulders. Breath in to prepare. Breath out, up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals. Now my tummy's on, crease at the bottom comes on, coming up through pubic bone up towards the ceiling. I breath in to prepare, see if I can take my weight over my toes, and breath out, articulate, down, top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. I want 2 more, really feeling this in backs of the legs because I am so out of shape. Breath in, I'm going to feel this tomorrow. Up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals. Oh, squeezy, 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 up through, crease at the bottom. You can see me doing that because I want both sides of my booty working, and I don't like to work through this side of the booty because my hips are slightly out. Breath in, press into my feet, send my pubic bone towards my knees. Breath out, articulate down from head to toe, head to toe. Slowly returning that spine like a string of pearls, 1 vertebra at a time. Send my fingertips long, press into the backs of my arms. 1 more time, guys. We're going to pulse it out when we get up. Yes, we are. Breath in to prepare. Breath out, lift up through pelvic floor, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, lower abdominals, coming up, coming up, coming up. Woo-hoo. Now, press into backs of my arms, send my pubic bone towards my knee. So I'm actually trying to take my body weight into my feet and towards the other side of the room. Imagining a giant grabbing hold of my legs and pulling my knees to the other side of the room. Let's go for 20 pulses up through crease to the bottom. It's going to be a killer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, cramping through the side, 18, 19, 20. Okay, press into the arms, send that weight over the toes, articulate that spine from top to bottom, not taking any tension into the upper body. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, ho. Nice. You've gone into imprinting and you've done a pelvic curl. So, you have worked yesterday because we were working through breathing properly up into your rib cage. Your rib cage, part of your shoulder girdle, part of your shoulder complex, so your upper body. So now today we were working to master your pelvis. So to maintain a neutral pelvis and correct alignment on the body, you need as stronger glutes, okay, bum, as you need strong abdominals. The tummy lets go, then we're going into our lower back through the day. If the tummy's on and we're strong there, but our booty doesn't want to work, we will still end up with lower back pain. In fact, that's when you'll end up with a lot of hip flexor pain, because you'll be relying on this, the front of your body, your abs and your legs, instead of your bum backing you up. So we know now how to breathe into our rib cage whilst maintaining some alignment in our lower abdominals. We know that the correct position when we're on the mat is to have our hip bones and pubic bone perfectly aligned, but we don't want to be maintaining that position at the expense of a neutral spine. And what muscles to use to hold it there. You can look up a lot of resources online that go into this in greater detail or explain it probably perhaps better than I do. So Pilates Anytime is a fantastic website. So lateral breathing, the neutral pelvis, neutral spine, not flat to the mat and not arched, it's in between, abdominals on. What the imprinting exercise was, imprinting is when you use your lower abdominals to relax your lower back into the floor, and a pelvic curl is a step up from imprinting, and it's when we've used our abdominals to relax our lower back into the floor, then we get our extensors, our hip extensors, so our glutes involved, and we use them to lift our pelvis up into a bridge position. And then we want to send that pubic bone up just that little bit more. Remember, the upper rib cage is still on the floor at this point, and try and get our weight over our knees, over our feet, so that we can use backs of the legs and the booty a little bit more. So that's probably a little bit too much detail, but guys, play with that because lateral breathing, pelvic floor, being able to lift your pelvic floor, turn it on, and use that as the first muscle that you wake up before going into an imprint. Hugely beneficial when mastering the Pilates method. Jessicat's Medi-Spa and Pilates.